Hi, my name's Joshua Freitas with the National Institute for Dementia Education. Today, I get the pleasure of talking with Pat, somebody we've bumped into a few times, but also getting to learn more of kind of her journey and her story. So, Pat, would you mind telling us a little bit about who you are and what brings you here?
I'm Pat Copple. My husband is Steve Copple. We've been married 52 years and he still loves me. And about 8 years ago now, we knew that he had mild cognitive impairment. We were living overseas and receiving some neurological help in Bangkok, but decided would need to be back in the States because I could see he was declining. So we arrived in 2020. And even though everything was shut down, I was able to find a neurologist to give him a diagnosis of Alzheimer's. So we've been on the journey about 5.5 years now with officially the diagnosis of Alzheimer's.
Yeah, when you guys came back through that process, could you walk us through some of the things that were going through your mind at that time, just from a resources, and I'm sure with COVID it made it even more difficult, but to
Mhm.
find the resources, just kind of that process. Was it
Yeah.
difficult to find a neurologist or to be able to wrap around that diagnosis?
Yeah, everything was difficult. We hadn't lived in the States for about 37 years, visiting but living overseas. So to come back during COVID was a huge challenge to both of us. But I knew that I needed to find what was going to be appropriate for Steve. So neurologists locally were not available, and I called the Shan Center. I believe it's in Gainesville, and was able to get an appointment. He had an MRI, and we had the official diagnosis. What was so strange is a very young doctor came into this little room. Yes, the MRI says, "You do have Alzheimer's, Steve. I think you'll be okay knowing it," and then left the room. So we had a rough beginning, which felt like emotionally almost no support medically at the beginning. But I called the Alzheimer's 800 number when I saw, oh, they have an 800 number. I can do that. And even during COVID, they were answering the phone and connected us eventually with a couples group, support group on Zoom. So our first 2 years, miraculously, we were meeting twice a month with four other couples. The men also had the disease, the same as Steve, and we would all talk together for 30 minutes, and then the men would talk together, and then the women would. And that really helped us to not be afraid of what we were stepping into, to find other people on that same journey.
You bring up a great point is support groups and finding people that are going through similar stories.
Yeah.
When you started jumping into those support groups, what are some things you found really helpful? I feel like I run into people and they're like, I won't do a support group, but I think it's so powerful. What kind of advice would you give them to not shy away from it, but to actually lean into those support groups?
Yeah, I discovered how much pride I had, thinking that, oh, we can do this on our own, but then realizing the extent of ignorance and coping skills. So I would say to anybody that's even beginning this journey, the sooner you join another group of people that are on a similar journey, the stronger you're going to be. I give what we've learned, they give what they've learned, and just to commiserate with the pain of it and the sadness, which are all there for each of us, for Steve and for me, as well as, the fun and the joy in some parts of it. But we're not created to be alone. We're created to be with other people, no matter what we're doing, I think, in the world today. So to connect, I think a support group should not just be whining and complaining. And if it is, then don't join that group, either online or in person. There's enough whining going on that won't help you.
You bring up a really good point is our brains are hardwired for socialization and to lean on
Yeah.
each other and to work through those stories. If you had to tell people maybe one benefit of a support group, what is one big or story around this where you went there and maybe learned something you didn't know about and you could incorporate that in life? Can you kind of share a success story from the support group?
Yeah, initially we were with a couple facilitating volunteers for Alzheimer's in this Zoom support group. So not in person, but it sure felt like it. And both of them just knew how to encourage when I needed that, but also very nicely to say, now, come on, you can do it, and here's how you can do it, and gave very specific ways of helping me solve the problem. I was getting way more angry with Steve than I wanted to be. And Louise said, okay, you go in the other room, you deep breathe for 5 minutes, and then you come back again. I didn't know that that would work, but that worked. So my anger really went down only because I had that one coping skill and began practicing that.
You bring up a really good point. It's just our emotions and what we go through. One thing I see is people bump up against is they want to join a support group, but they don't have a place for their loved one to go to during that time. And I know you participated in a program here in Florida, which is fantastic. Is Can you tell us a little bit about that program? Is kind of the way that it's structured for the support for the family, but then also the benefit for the resident as well.
Yeah, through the Alzheimer's organization, we were informed of a new program at Stetson University, which is right in our backyard here in DeLand, and it's called Brain Fitness Academy, the most remarkable program in Florida, I think. So it's labeled for people with mild cognitive impairment challenges, and even though Steve was a little bit beyond that, they allowed him to join in their first semester, I think, or second semester. So it gave him a group to go to for 3.5 hours, 2 days a week. And they also began a support group for the partners of the people who were in the class. So every other Tuesday, we meet together, and we still do now, even though he's graduated from that program. I can talk about that later. But the support group allows us to come together while our partners are busy being well taken care of, not just entertained, but different aspects of their brain are being challenged during that 3.5 hours.
Now, I'm a big believer in neurological genesis and getting that brain active.
Yes.
Did you see changes in him from sense of purpose and articulation cognitively from
Yeah.
participating in that program?
Even though he's very quiet, Steve's a real social creature and likes to join, even though he's not what I would call the life of the party. And so to find a group where he could go to and be part of another group of people separate from me, I began to see him be more relaxed and peaceful on those days because I think it's that sense of security that he had. I also noticed that he was more alert. I like to try to play a game every afternoon, and what I found was no stress chess or bananagrams in some form of that. And before Brain Fitness Academy, it was very hard for him to just concentrate on the card and see where to move the marker. But the longer he was in the Brain Fitness Academy program, that became simple for him because it became a habit of what he was doing and some of what he had been practicing during those morning classes. Socialization, maybe even more so than neurological brain practice, I think is what really helps someone with dementia. And I believe too often we tend to hide away, much like we did when our children who were disabled maybe 50 years ago. Oh, don't tell anybody, and we'll keep them here, maybe longer than 50 now. And I think we need a new view of not being embarrassed by the behavior of our partner who has dementia and get them in any kind of group. That's what they need.
I agree with you, and I think social normalcies it helps people remember too. It also cues the brain and keeps it structured
Yeah.
so that they can be more successful longer.
Mhm.
Speaking about that, is I feel like the stigma that comes with dementia when you first get the diagnosis, and only if you feel comfortable sharing,
Sure.
is did you have that inkling to say, "Oh no, we can't go out in public anymore"?
Um, I think I did internally. Although we had about 3 years where I could see, and the people that he worked with could see, and his children, that he was declining. So it wasn't really bam new. And I think internally, at the beginning, I was just thinking, oh man, this is a brilliant person, an incredible administrator. And then we move here where nobody knows him like that. Everybody we knew was overseas. So I had that challenge of not letting that defeat me in what I needed to find for him. I was so depressed that people wouldn't know him in the way that he had been, and had to really shift my thinking to totally appreciate who he is right now, even though that certainly has changed even since we've, joined the journey. So, yeah, I think and then publicly, as his behaviors shift, for example, it's easier to just eat at home than to go to our dining room in our community here, where and sit at a big table with other people where they can observe that his eating skills have changed a bit. He eats very quickly. Sometimes he forgets to use a fork. And in my head, I'm thinking, oh, that's not good. And I have to just say, it's good because that's where he is. And if people aren't comfortable with it, they'll learn.
I think you speak on something that's so beautiful too, is meeting that person where they are. And you do
Yeah.
such a great job of that. The other thing I have to give you kudos for is every time I see you, you're smiling and looking at the positive. And I know that that's a choice.
Yeah.
Is can you give some people some advice for that? Is in this disease process, there's so much we can look at the negative, but how do people reframe that and how do you approach it more in a positive light? Because you can really get consumed by
Yeah.
all the different parts of it. What do
Yeah.
you do to be able to say, I meet them where they are, this is how we meet, and kind of celebrate who he is at this time? How do you do that?
Yeah, I think probably my background in teaching has helped me a lot. So I give a lot of credit to that experience. And because I was teaching in international schools where every student is so completely different, 30 different languages in one class, I
Wow.
had to determine I would meet every student where they were, no matter where that was. If they didn't know their ABCs, then we back up. If they could read fluently, we go there. So with Steve, it was maybe natural in some ways to keep seeing where is he, meet him right there, and then bring him along, whatever rate that was. And I think what has really helped me probably is my perspective that we're all created in the image of God. So, regardless of what disease a person is walking in or what disability, God loves them exactly the way they are. And I found a great book called Dementia, Living in the Memories of God, where he gives a whole practical theology of how we're viewed by God. And oh man, it just cracks open this little Western medical view of who a person with dementia is. God's known Steve since before he created him and has been with him every day. So the way I stay positive is knowing that he's loved by God and cared by him. But I also found if I can focus on what I'm thankful for, that really reshapes my brain. So for a while ago, when Steve was able to, he was writing down 2 things he's thankful for each morning, and I was making 10. Otherwise, I move into this dark field of what we don't have, what I wish was there, what isn't there, that whole land of regret. So I think if we have progressive acceptance as we're going along, it makes it so much easier. And yeah, I don't think I'm a Pollyanna because I like to whine and complain a lot too, but I'm trying to keep it focused. What do we have? What can I be thankful for? There's a lot, a whole lot.
Yeah. I was just going to say, if you had to give advice to a different family that was going through this and they just got a diagnosis,
Hmm.
what like top two or three things for advice would you give them?
I would say step into it as soon as you can. which is hard to say, easy to say, hard to do. But the longer we're holding it at length, oh no, what does it mean? It's terrible. I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do. The harder it is to really move forward. So, like with pain, I say give it a hug and dance with it. And what does that mean? It means finding out, get knowledgeable. Go find out from Alzheimer's organization, alz.org, what you need to know about it and what you have to learn. Connect with a group of people that can support you. And then don't leave decisions too late. If you know that the keys to the car have to be taken away, do it early. Don't keep belaboring it. Don't think, oh, it's going to be terrible. He hates it. Yes, he hates it, but the doctor will help him see it has to be done. Otherwise, in Florida, you have an accident when you have Alzheimer's and you're the one at fault, even if you're not. So I would say be knowledgeable, both intellectually and emotionally, of how you can move forward in it.
That's fantastic advice. Now, as you've been going through the journey and there's changes, what do you see with each of those changes? Is it kind of a new revisiting and leaning into it, or is it finding new resources? I know that never stops, but as you're seeing changes, like you mentioned, he graduated from Brain Fitness and now he's in a different program, and
Right.
what comes next is navigating that. How do you go through that?
Yeah, the changes are hard. And I think the reason the support groups have helped is we hear from people that are on different aspects of the journey. So, not that it might happen exactly in that way, but it kind of alerts us that, you know what, some of this is I'm going to meet in the future. So, when, for example, just even maybe 6 months ago, Steve was able to read out loud, and I could write down the page of his book where he wanted to read one page every day. And now he can hardly do that, reading verbally. So, for that, yeah, that makes me sad because that's a big part of his life. But now I read the page to him, and he still loves hearing it, and he's happy to engage with me in that. It just means giving a bit more of myself. And actually, that's what this whole journey is. It means laying my life down for a friend because he's the best friend I've had. And so it means giving up maybe more of my time, but when I see what it does for him, and I don't always see it, but I can feel it in his peace and his security, then it's worth it to me.
You are a remarkable person. I want to just put that out there too, is you jumping in as a caregiver and making such a difference is pretty remarkable.
But I also wanted to mention, if I may, Josh, after Brain Fitness Academy, we say he graduated, mostly because he wasn't able to keep up with the activities anymore. So I tried for a time a respite program through Council on the Aging, which is in Orange City. And he would go for part of the day, but didn't want to stay the whole time. And I never knew when they were going to call me and say, oh, Steve wants to come home now. And then I found out about Certis, Premier Memory Care Living Facility in Orange City, and visited and thought, oh man, this is what he needs. So it's built on this open village concept where everything is linked to building strength for those that have dementia. So when Steve walks in, he loves getting out of the car in the morning when I say, "Here's your day program." And when I pick him up at the end of the day, "How'd it go, Steve?" "Oh, I had such a good time today." There is never a negative, even, "Oh, not so good." Well, worth it. Well worth it.
So, Pat, I heard that you spoke at the Alzheimer's Walk just about a week ago, and it was incredibly impactful. I've heard it from so many people about the stories and the things and the practical tips that you were sharing. What are some of those things in that speech or that you would like to share with other people that are listening?
Well, I have a whole list of the routines at home that have really helped us a lot. Safety is a big factor. So I put labels on all the rooms in our home way early on, even maybe before Steve needed them. So he began to get in the habit of reading the sign, even though he may not have needed it. So labels in all the rooms, his clothes cupboards, the everything in the kitchen. And then I had door latches put on the handle of each door that so he can't push down the handle and get outside. He's a wanderer, and that works really well. He hasn't figured out how to push the button and open that yet. Air tag in his shoe, I mentioned, because he does wander, and that has helped me find him a couple of times now. It's a great tool if someone you love is a wanderer. I signed up with the police for Silver Alert, so they can find him when he's out where I can't find him. And yeah, they found him one day. It was so good. And it was the sweetest thing because after I came home and said, Steve, you were lost and then you were found. And he said, Oh, that's amazing grace. And he can remember a hymn that he knows from long ago. I got an ID bracelet that has his name, address, and my number, and also the address of the retirement community we're in. So anybody can help him find his way home. And in our home, I have a large calendar, which now where he is, he's not paying attention to, but even several months ago, he was looking at it every day. So it shows him for the month what we're doing. And then every day I would list about 5 things that was on his schedule on a separate board beside the big one. So he could look up in the morning and see what we're doing. And that helped with all the questions. What are we doing today? When are we going? Where are we going? I just say, go look at the board, read it. What does it say? And then he would answer his own question. When we're driving in the car, I have post-its that I put on the dash in front of him. So I don't have to answer 10 million times. Where are we going? What are we going to do when we get there? What time are we coming home? Just look at your note. What does it say? When we travel, I found out about the Sunflower program where you go to the information desk at the airport and they give the person with a hidden disability a sunflower lanyard. So it identifies all airport staff that that person may need some extra help. So he wears that when we're boarding, you get early boarding and just such nice care. I try to use the family restroom, especially in the airport. Doesn't always work if they're busy. So one day he disappeared into the men's room at the airport and didn't come out, didn't come out, didn't come out. So I grabbed him in and said, Could you find someone with sunflowers? And in a minute I heard, I got him. He's in here. He's got sunflowers on his neck. And he brought Steve out again. So that helped a lot. I also have a letter from our incredible primary doctor, Dr. Shin, that I carry with me. And it basically says Steve has to be with me all the time. We can't be separated, either on the plane or emergency room. And I keep track of what he can do and be knowledgeable of that. So I'm not expecting what he no longer can do. And that list becomes smaller, but I try to find things that can add to, I can do this list. I don't know if that helps, Josh.
That was absolutely fantastic. Actually, some of those resources I think are things that can be changing to make something so difficult so much easier. And it's such
Yeah.
a dignified way. Even thinking
Mhm.
of the airports of walking through and people identifying and shifting how they approach somebody, it just provides a
Yeah.
whole new layer where you can still travel
Yeah.
and at the same time it's dignified.
Yes.
You also keep bringing up a term, it's called habilitation. Well, you're bringing up pieces of what habilitation is, and is that's focusing on what the person can still do. And
Right.
this whole conversation you've always focused on, where's his ability, how do I meet him where he is, and how do I
Mhm.
celebrate that and help him move forward. So I think
Yeah.
that's really powerful for other people, is to constantly be in that mindset of what can he still do and how do I help him remain doing that as long as possible.
Yeah. And I think also keeping him as independent as possible, which of course, he's losing that little by little. But one of his
Yeah.
tasks at home, the tasks at home have really diminished. He can still sweep the leaves in the front of our house. So I make sure I'm at the window watching him so he doesn't walk away. And I tell the maintenance team, don't bring your blowers over here. He has to sweep because it's good for him. But then at the end of that, he sees that he's done something that's so worthwhile. So that kind of thing helps a lot too.
Pat, I got to say, some of the information you shared has been absolutely fantastic.
Great.
And I wanted to just personally say thank you for being an amazing caregiver for your husband. And also, everybody that you touch base with, I know we've been at a support group together, and just your way of including people and helping them and showing that it's going to
Mhm.
be okay. I applaud you for that, for sure.
Thank you, Josh.
Pat, is there anything else that you think that you would like to share with people that might be listening?
Yeah, I think to do things early on. I know some if you're female and your husband is male and you're in a house on your own, the house is a huge big deal. So the sooner you make a decision about maybe moving where you have help around you. So for example, we purposely didn't buy a house when we moved back to the States. We moved into Alliance Community where they have a maintenance team and security and I don't have to think about those things. So if that's a possibility for some people, I'd say early on, make changes. Yeah, your spouse won't like it, but you need to decide that you have to be the decision maker. And a phrase I've used often is, you know what, we're going to try it for 6 weeks and then we'll talk about it. I never say we're not going to do it, but we're just going to try and we'll see what happens. But we have to be prepared that our spouse might not be so happy with the decisions we have to make for their best good. That's a hard thing to do. And I think more and more I've seen, especially watching Steve, he loves to sit and sing in the morning and worship that spirits are growing, and whatever you believe, I believe our spirits are going to be going into eternity. We need to be ready for that. So focusing on that, don't neglect it because that's become even more important to him now. And then having a routine, the same thing every day. Don't be rushed. If he needs more time to get ready to go to Certus, we take more time. Kind of like toddlers. You can hurry up. Come on, we got to get there. Or, okay, just, put your shoe on. We're going to do it. And that's been hard for me. But the more I can do that, the more settled Steve is and do the same thing every day. It gets to be at 5:42 now he's out in the kitchen saying, "Are we eating yet?" If we are not eating yet, because that's what he's used to. But it gives them sense of security. And that's what I'd like to give Steve till the end of his days when he goes to heaven where he'll really be secure.
Thank you so much, Pat, for coming on and sharing all your information, your stories that can help so many people. Now, I know that our numbers for this podcast is growing, so I ask for you to like and subscribe and share the information with other people. The only way we make an impact is if we share these resources with one another. Just like Pat said on this, is each support group, she gathered information that she shared, and it becomes part of you and your habits. So please help us grow our following and getting these resources to people that need them. Once again, my name is Joshua Freitas with the National Institute for Dementia Education, and thank you for tuning in.